This series of videos will talk about persuasive patterns. This first video will specifically talk about the Toulmin method. This is an effective way of presenting arguments, both written and oral, and it was named for 20th century philosopher Stephen Toulmin. There are several elements of that which we will go over here now. The first one is claim. Claim is the actual overall thesis the writer will argue for. This is that statement that you are going to make that says, this is what we're talking about. Drugs should be legalized. That is a claim. In a persuasive speech, you may have several claims. In fact, you may have the overarching claim or the thesis of the speech you're doing, but then each of your main points also become a separate, lesser claim. For example, legalize marijuana as your overall theme. Your secondary claim, your first main point, may be that marijuana has medical benefits. Your second main point, or third claim, technically, would be that legalizing marijuana is profitable for the country as a whole. So that is the whole idea of what you are going to do. You're going to make a claim. You're going to make some kind of statement that says, this is what's going on. Then we're going to talk about the data. You know, that research that everybody's supposed to be doing. It's that all that information that you're going to put up. So I'm going to make a claim, and then I'm going to say I'm going to support that claim with these bits of data. This is information that helps support it. And then we're going to move on to the warrant. This is a part that a lot of people tend to forget while they're making their argumentation. You've made your statement, you've made your claim, you've produced your data, so therefore you should understand that but this is the part that ties it together. This is the warrant. This is that thing that brings everything together and lets your audience understand how it is that your data supports your claim. Sometimes you'll have a claim, one bit of information, and here's the warrant that supports it. Sometimes you'll have a claim and 2 or 3 bits of information, and then the warrant of how it sews it all together. You also need to have some additional backing. This is some additional logic or reasoning that helps support your warrant. Your warrant may be a single sentence or a single statement, but sometimes you need to be more clear and expand on that. So that's what the backing is. It's just that additional information that would be helpful for people to understand. Now, when presenting an argument, especially oral, you don't always have to give the opponent's point of view. When you're writing, you really should give some counterclaims. That is that idea of some various information that helps people understand that there is something else out there. You're not just blithely ignoring the rest of the world to make your own claim. However, the counterclaim is that statement that comes up with those. And when you make your counterclaim, or when a counterclaim is provided, or if you're providing one, it can be useful to help strengthen your own argument. In communications, we call this theory as inoculation theory. So I'm giving my speech and I'm presenting it, and my adversary here is going to tell you that guns don't kill people, people kill people, right? And then of course I'm going to talk about that, and then I'm going to come back through with my rebuttal and provide the evidence or whatever that supports my overall thesis. That says, well, if guns don't kill people, then why don't we give guns to people? Then we go to war. Makes perfect logical sense or whatever. Not really, but that's all right. We're not talking about good structure on those memes on the side. Just this idea that if guns don't kill people, whatever. So you have that rebuttal. Now, those are the steps of the Toulmin method. There is one more step that we usually get into with debate, but it's good to understand on this, and that's impact. It's the whole idea that there is something out there, or it's the whole idea that why this should be supporting, or why my audience should support or care about my argumentation. It also is very effective when you start looking at the whole and saying, okay, I have my thesis, and then I have my 3 main points, and each main point has a claim, and it has the evidence, the data, and the warrant, and the backing, and all the counterclaim stuff, and you may do that in each separate main point for each claim, and then your impact for each claim or each main point is how it impacts the thesis, how it wraps into this and says why you should even care. Babies are dying. Here's evidence of that babies are dying. I've shown you that, because of all these things, we are losing children at an alarming rate. This should matter to you because as we lose children, then we start losing our hope for the future and we become problematic. And eventually, if we're not careful, we will become an aged society in which human race could become extinct. So you should be paying attention to this. Just like the whole idea of this stupid meme insults an Illuminati member, global thermonuclear war debate has a habit of devolving into like the worst possible outcome. You don't need to go to that extreme, but you do need to show us exactly how all of your claims, all of your data, all of your warrants, all of that stuff actually has an impact on whatever your overarching claim is and the audience in general. Okay, so let's walk through an example. Hybrid cars are an effective strategy to fight pollution. All right. So, driving a private car is a typical citizen's most air polluting activity. That's your data. I'm going to assume that someone would have had some research behind this, but let's just go with this. And then the next one, because air cars are the largest source of private, as opposed to industrial produced, air pollution, switching to hybrid cars should have an impact on fighting pollution. Sorry. So, that's my data. We're going to help it. Here's my warrant. Because of this, I'm explaining that. Here's my second point. Each stays on the road each time each vehicle is used on the road for 12 to 15 years. How does that have any effect on us? Because cars generally have a long lifespan, meaning that a decision to switch to a hybrid car will help a long-term impact on pollution levels. Do you see how I gave a random statement of data, or this illustration gave a random statement of data, and then it tied it to the actual claim? Lastly, hybrid cars combine the gasoline engine with the battery-powered electric motor. Woohoo! Again, random data. But this combustion technology means that less pollution is produced. According to Indeed, in the ineedtoknow.org, the hybrid engine of the Prius made by Toyota produces 90% fewer harmful emissions than a comparable gasoline engine. So I've shown again how that works. But here's the counterclaim. But instead, and here's what we're talking about. So I'm saying we're going to do this, and then your opposition is going to come up and say, but instead of focusing on cars, which is still encouraging the culture of driving, even though it cuts down on pollution, the nation should focus on building and encouraging the use of mass transit systems. Okay, cool. I understand that exists. So I'm trying to make this claim of this. And I'm saying, okay, they're going to say that they're going to come at me with this idea. Or here's another point that we should be doing this. However, sure, mass transit is an environmentally sound idea and it should be encouraged. It's not feasible in many rural and suburban areas, or for people who must commute to work. Thus, hybrid cars are a better solution for much of the nation's population. So when you do this, and if you really wanted to impact this one out, let's take this thing, because this is based on the Toulmin method. But when we look at the idea and throwing the idea of impact in this, so now that I've shown all of this, I can show you that we need to fight air pollution, because if we don't fight the air pollution, we're going to have problems. The ozone layer is depleting. We have global warming. We have all these things happening. We're going to lose, if we're not careful, the waters will rise from all these pollution, and eventually we'll lose Disney World. And of course, we all love to go to Disney World. So we really need to look at bringing in hybrid cars online and getting people more to do that to fight this pollution problem. That's short and dirty on claims, warrants, impacts, and all that. Next one will be over specific patterns, so stay tuned.